The first Lou Bolt, when you wrote it, did you expect it to turn into a series? Or
Never intended it to be a series.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, that was back when there weren't serial killer novels, and I wrote one. Thomas Harris had written Red Dragon. I had been bowled over by it, and I said, that's something I'd like to try. And I got in there early before other people had done it, and I think because of that the book took off and did very, very well. And I went on and wrote Probable Cause, and I wrote Hardfall and a bunch of other books. And I went over on the Fulbright, and there was the Rodney Wichello case, which was a true crime case that happened while I was over there, of the H.J. Heinz Food Company had been involved in a product tampering case where their product was being tampered and they were being held ransom, and it was a very complex pay system, and it came out in the papers sort of monthly, and it fascinated me. And I took detailed notes and said, I'm going to fictionalize the Wichello case and set it in London. And my publisher said, you're going to fictionalize the Wichello case and set it anywhere but overseas. We don't want to risk that. They didn't think an American audience would accept that. I still think they might have. But so they said, pick an American city. And I thought in my head, what has that ambiance of London with the mist and it was Seattle.
Of course.
And once I did that, I went, oh my gosh, if it's Seattle, it's Lou Bolt. And so I wrote a second Lou Bolt, and it did very, very well, and we got zillions of letters saying, I love Lou Bolt and Daphne, and have them back. And so now I've written 6 of them. But it's in another side of my life, which we may or may not talk about, I've written a series, and this was never intended to be a series. And it's really interesting to get involved in a series, because in a 400-page book, there's a Kodak snapshot of a life, and you may be able to tell the whole life, but you're going to tell it awfully quickly. In a series, I mean, I've written 2,500 published pages of Bolt now.
Right.
There's a long life there, and that's become really fun to be involved with.
Sure.
And there are characters who you bring in once. There's a character in this novel, in The First Victim, Mama Lou, who's this Asian sort of warlord in Seattle, and I loved Mama Lou. She came out of nowhere in this book. She was nowhere in the outline. She just surfaced one day and said, hi. And I've brought her into the next book because I liked her so much, and she just plays a cameo. But there's this thing of creating this ensemble cast, and you get to love these guys, and you go, hey, she could come in and play for a while, and it's just so much fun.
Well,
really,
and
really
you
fun.
Can see that you've sort of changed strains too. It wasn't clear that Bolt and Matthews weren't going to develop, some
Right.
personal relationship, and that it waxed and now it's waned, and the wife is, and it is interesting how you can kind of maneuver these characters around, and life is like that.
It is, and that's exactly what's so much fun, is that you can, we all change, we all age, we all have times when we have some money, when we don't have some money, when we have our health, when we don't have our health. To put that all into one book, you're gonna, especially in the kind of book I write, you're gonna have to slow the pacing down. And you're not gonna get the fast crime thriller that I want to write, where you just are going, what's happening? And yet in a series, you can get away with that, because you can squeak 5 pages here and 4 pages there to delve into the character issues. And if you do that too much, people call it literature, or they say, oh, the mystery in this failed, or it's a 700-page book that no one wants. And so series are really fun. They're a challenge, because you have to keep it fresh. And that's why I don't do a serial killer every time. I mean, I've done a serial killer book.
Well, thank you for that.
And now I do one about illegal adoption, and then I do one about illegal immigrants, and there's a million stories out there, and they catch your attention, and I think they're more interesting than just the next axe to take a head off in a bedroom. So,
well, I do too, and frankly, I've had it with serial killers.
Yeah,
so I'm really pleased to be reading something else for the moment. Just for the benefit of our audience, before we switch to our second author, who is going to appear on our program today, Undercurrents was the first.
Was the first. No Witnesses, of the Bolt series.
The Bolt series.
The Angel Maker, Beyond Recognition, Pied Piper, and now The First Victim.
Right. I think that it's nice for people in a series to start at the beginning if they can, so I wanted to try
And we do list the books in the front of the book. In the front of every book, the books are listed chronologically, but they aren't keyed for what are the Bolt books. On our website, ridleypearson.com, we've separated them out so that you can see which are the Bolt books, which are the detective books, which are the espionage books.
Which
just
does help.
It makes it easier for people.
You
And the
bet.
website's fun. There's contests on there.
It's a great
Things like that.
website. I've really
thanks.
enjoyed going to see it. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, Ridley.
Thank you for having me.
And we have a special treat for our audience today, which is that we have a second author coming in to do the balance of our program, coincidentally also from Idaho. His name is Wendell McCall, and coincidentally published by Poison Pen Press. And to that end, I have brought along posters of that author's book. This one, the first in series by Chris Click, for Chris Click, called Dead Aim. And the second and most recent one, Concerto in Dead Flat, coincidentally set at Oxford. So bear with us a moment, and we'll be right back with Wendell McCall. Welcome back, and we have a second guest with us, Wendell McCall.
Well, hello.
Wendell, so nice of you to come.
Nice to be here.
This is really exciting. It's been years since we met Chris Click in his very first book, Dead Aim.
It has 10 years, I think, or maybe even 11.
I think, yeah, actually 1988.
Mm-hmm.
So you decided, being from Idaho at that point, give your guy a whole different approach. You've got a private investigator.
Yes, I had read an article, and my now passed away but wonderful late agent Franklin Heller had sent me this article on an attorney. It was a team. It was an attorney and an ex-musician down in Hollywood. The attorney would chase down royalties owed. Say the Platters had been collecting money for 7 years, and nobody from the Platters had claimed it. He would then try to liberate that money from the company that had done the recordings and owed it to him legally. And while he did that, he sent this musician out to find these guys, because half of them had disappeared, and find the person who was owed the money. This is real life. And I thought, that's a detective series. You know, my guy can be the ex-musician who goes out to find these people owed money. I mean, some of them are going to be dead. Some of them are not going to want to be found. Some of them, you know, will love the money. Some of them will be afraid of the money. I mean, there's that famous story about, it was one of the Stones or Jeff Beck or somebody who walked into an agent's office because he was getting so much money and didn't know how to handle it and was on drugs and all this, and he walked in with a gun to the receptionist and said, "No more money." You know, so I mean, there's every kind of element in the rock world. And I thought, what a great stage for a detective. I was a big fan of John D. MacDonald's, and I thought, what a great stage for a straight-ahead detective series. And when I went to write it, the first one I wrote, I set Chris Click, who's this ex-musician trying to return money. This is kind of like a cross of Magnum P.I. and The Millionaire, if you had to put it on TV. But I thought he should be taking a break and resting at his friend's log cabin in Idaho, which is where I was writing at the time. And that it would be really, really fun to see him trying to get some rest, and there's a damsel in distress or something, and off he goes into a challenging story. So that's really what started the series, was this one little article on this wacko team down in LA who actually returned royalty money.
And we might add, keeps a percentage of it.
And keeps a strong percentage, like 25%. And you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of such dollars down in LA that either were kind of partially swindled from these people, and a good attorney can get back because the rights were never really clear and the group was ripped off, or simply they lay unclaimed because the group had 4 members and 3 of them have died and the 4th doesn't even realize they're getting airplay in South America every week, and the 5 cents in airplay is accumulating, and you know, there's $100,000 sitting somewhere.
Oh, I think it's an absolutely great idea. So you've got Bruce Warren, who's the attorney, who's down there in music, you know, La La
and we
Land.
don't see a lot of him, but he helps keep us on track.
Yeah, he's off stage, but you know, kind of mastering the puppet master, so to speak. And then we've got Chris Click, who's resting in Idaho and who has to exert himself every once in a while, going to find somebody. Yeah. And I think of him as sitting out in his porch, you know, kind of boots up. Now he's the guy that gets to go fly fishing.
He gets to go fly fishing.
Actually, I think about this series in many ways as the life you'd like to lead.
That's exactly right. And the life I was leading right then.